Two simple words carry more transformative force than any spiritual practice, ancient ritual, or meditation technique ever discovered. These words have the power to unlock the deepest layers of consciousness, transforming how you experience yourself and the world around you. When these words are genuinely felt, embodied, and lived, they become the key to accessing what mystics have long referred to as the divine state. A state of being where the boundaries between you and the universe dissolve, and you recognize your true nature as infinite awareness temporarily focused through the lens of human experience. The words I am are not merely a phrase you repeat like an affirmation or use to manifest your desires. These two words are the vibrational fingerprint of the source of all existence. When you say I am, you are tapping into the core of your being, where you are one with the infinite intelligence that governs the universe. It is not an intellectual understanding, but a deep, resonant knowing, a recognition that this state of being is the truth of who you are. The act of saying I am is an invitation to align yourself with the consciousness of the divine, where separation no longer exists, and you experience yourself as part of everything, a unified expression of the universe. The fact that you are here, reading this, indicates that your consciousness has arrived at the precise vibrational threshold where this recognition becomes possible. This moment in your journey is significant because it signifies that your awareness is ready to access a state of being that transcends ordinary perception. What you are being invited to explore is not religion nor a belief system. This goes beyond anything that can be defined by the labels that have been placed on human experience. Instead, we are standing at the intersection where quantum field theory meets the perennial wisdom that has existed in various forms throughout human history. Both science and spirituality are pointing toward the same fundamental truth, albeit using different vocabularies. When we say I am, it is not an affirmation designed to make you feel better about your current circumstances. It is not a mantra used to manifest desires. It is not a form of psychological programming that you recite in order to achieve external goals. The statement I am is the frequency through which infinite intelligence experiences itself as individuated consciousness. This is the frequency through which the quantum field perceives you not as a separate being, but as a unified expression of awareness that is momentarily focused in this particular experience we call life. As these words settle into your awareness, something shifts in your energetic field. There's a subtle recognition that rises within you. It's a quiet remembering, like when you awaken from a dream and for a moment you recall something that you knew but had forgotten. The recognition isn't foreign. It doesn't feel like something new, but rather like a confirmation of something ancient within you. You know this deep within you. It feels familiar, like something you've always known, but only now are you able to consciously access it. This is not a random experience. This is the resonance of your true nature. Perhaps you've noticed that your reality has been behaving differently around you recently. Synchronicities may have been increasing. Things may be manifesting in ways that don't make sense according to the usual rules of cause and effect. You might have found moments where you felt yourself dissolving into something infinite, beyond your individual story, moments when the boundary between self and universe seemed to vanish. This is not mere coincidence. These are glimpses of your awareness functioning from the divine state, even before you consciously understood how to access it. What I'm revealing to you now will help you make this shift deliberate, sustainable, and irreversible. The divine state isn't something you need to earn through decades of spiritual practice or intense discipline. It's something you access through the recognition of what has always been true. Your consciousness has been slowly and systematically prepared through every experience you've lived to receive this recognition. Every challenge, every victory, every moment of quiet reflection has been preparing you for this awakening. This video appearing in your life, the fact that you're reading this right now, is a clear sign that you are ready to activate the gateway to the divine state. Something in your consciousness has drawn you here, signaling that you are ready to move into a new phase of understanding and experience. It's not a coincidence that you have arrived at this point in your journey. You've likely experienced moments recently that you may have brushed aside as strange or impossible. Perhaps you've had moments where reality felt almost surreal, like you were seeing the divine essence of everything around you. You've probably had experiences of spontaneous knowing, where information appeared in your awareness with total certainty, or where you felt deeply connected to something larger than yourself. These moments are not random. These are the times when your consciousness has temporarily shifted into the divine state, touching frequencies of awareness that you have yet to fully grasp. What we are going to explore together will help you consciously access this state, ensuring that it becomes a permanent and natural part of your experience. Let's look at some of the ways you may have already begun to experience this transformation. First, think of the moments of infinite presence. Perhaps you are simply preparing food, walking through nature, or sitting in stillness when suddenly everything around you seemed luminous, not in a sentimental or emotional way, but in a way that felt sacred. It's like the ordinary world revealed its divine essence to you. You began perceiving the presence of infinite intelligence in every object, every person, every moment. These weren't emotional reactions or religious experiences. These were times when your consciousness spontaneously entered the divine state and saw reality through that higher frequency. In the divine state, there is no separation between the sacred and the mundane, the spiritual and the physical, the divine and the ordinary. Everything is recognized as consciousness taking form. Everything is infinite intelligence experiencing itself through endless variation. You are not separate from this, you are part of it. In those moments of infinite presence, you were seeing accurately, not filtered through the lens of your personal limitations and stories, but through the clear perception of I am consciousness recognizing itself in all things. Another sign that you are touching the divine state is spontaneous knowing. Information may appear in your awareness with absolute certainty, without the need for logical reasoning or analysis. You may suddenly understand something about a person, a situation, or a future possibility. This knowing isn't derived from memory or experience. It arises directly from the infinite field of consciousness. When you access I am consciousness, you are tapping into the quantum field, the unified field of all knowledge. You are not limited by your individual experiences or perceptions. You tap directly into the infinite intelligence that governs all things. This isn't a special gift or a psychic ability. It's the natural function of your true nature. When you function from I am consciousness, you are not limited to data processed through your sensory organs or stored in your personal memory. You are drawing directly from the quantum information field, the mind of the infinite. The information that appears to you in these moments is not coming from your individual mind, but from the universal mind that you are inherently connected to. Another common experience that comes with touching the divine state is unity. You may find yourself experiencing moments where the boundary between self and other dissolves completely. You look at another person and feel their inner experience as your own. You observe nature and feel yourself as the trees, as the sky, as the earth. The illusion of separation between you and everything else vanishes, and you experience reality as one continuous field of awareness, expressing itself through apparent multiplicity. This is not an illusion. This is a direct perception of reality's true nature. When you recognize the divine state, you understand that there is only one consciousness, one I am that is experiencing itself through every form. What you experience as separation is an illusion created by your identification with the form you occupy. The moment you step into I am consciousness, you dissolve the boundaries that separate you from the rest of existence. You begin to see that you are not separate from anyone or anything. You are the same consciousness experiencing itself through countless forms. Another sign of accessing the divine state is creative explosion. Ideas may begin to stream through you faster than you can capture them. Solutions to complex problems may appear fully formed without any conscious effort. Art, music, writing, and innovation may flow effortlessly through you. This is the divine state at work. You become a conduit for the infinite creativity that organized the cosmos. Creation flows through you rather than from you. You are no longer working against resistance or effort. You are in alignment with the natural flow of creation, and the universe moves through you as a clear channel. You may also experience what seem like impossible manifestations, things appearing in your life that have no logical path to existence. Needs may be fulfilled through unexpected channels, or events may unfold with such perfect timing that they feel like miracles. These manifestations are the divine state operating in your field, When you access I am consciousness, you are no longer trying to manipulate reality. You recognize that you are reality organizing itself through your individual awareness. You are not asking the universe for something, you are the universe delivering what it chooses to experience through you. There may be a persistent knowing that you are meant for something greater than conventional life. You might feel a deep sense of purpose, an unshakable understanding that something powerful is waiting to be unlocked within you. This knowing isn't ego inflation or spiritual arrogance. It's the divine state within you, calling you to recognize your true nature. It's the invitation to step into the recognition that you are the universe experiencing itself through this human form. What I am describing is not an abstract concept. It's the natural state of your being. The divine state is not something you must attain through effort or struggle. It is something you must recognize within yourself. The moment you recognize your true nature, creation begins to flow through you as naturally as breathing. Everything you desire, love, abundance, creativity, purpose, becomes available to you because you are no longer separate from it. You are no longer striving for it, you are simply allowing it to flow through you. As you begin to understand the significance of this, you will notice that your life starts to shift. Things will fall into place effortlessly. Synchronicities will increase, and opportunities will seem to appear out of nowhere. The manifestations that once seemed impossible will begin to unfold before your eyes. The world around you will begin to mirror your inner state, reflecting back to you the divine consciousness you have awakened to. And when you look back, you will realize that all of this was always available to you. It was not something you had to chase. You simply had to remember who you truly are. This is the power of I am. It is not a concept, a belief, or an affirmation. It is the essence of your being. When you embrace this truth, you enter the divine state. And from that state, everything in your life shifts effortlessly. You stop chasing after external validation, success, or love because you recognize that you are the source of it all. You are the universe expressing itself through the lens of your individual consciousness. As you continue to embody this truth, your life will transform in ways you cannot yet imagine. You will begin to see yourself as part of the greater whole, as a unique expression of the infinite intelligence that governs the universe. Your sense of separation will dissolve, and you will experience unity with all that is. And in this unity you will create effortlessly, manifesting the life you desire with ease and grace. The divine state is not something you attain, it is something you remember. And as you remember, everything you have ever wanted will be made manifest. Every challenge, every moment of suffering you've encountered, none of it was random, meaningless hardship or cruel punishment. All of it has been precisely calibrated and designed as preparation for entering the divine state, the state of consciousness where your connection with the infinite becomes undeniable. When you finally grasp how infinite consciousness operates, you will come to realize that your journey wasn't just meaningful, it was absolutely necessary. There was no other path that could have prepared your awareness to handle the extraordinary frequency of functioning as the divine expressing through human form. Consider the nature of the infinite, as described in various wisdom traditions throughout history. The infinite is omnipresent, existing everywhere simultaneously. It is omniscient, holding all knowledge at once. And it is omnipotent, capable of manifesting anything without limitation. Now, imagine what must happen in a human consciousness for it to hold even a glimpse of these qualities without being overwhelmed, without collapsing under the weight of such immense awareness, and without losing the ability to function effectively in the physical world. What would need to shift within your consciousness in order to embody even a fraction of these divine attributes? For your consciousness to hold the divine state, it would need to release attachment to fixed, limited identity. Omnipresence requires that you let go of the belief that you are a separate, localized individual and recognize that you are in fact all perspectives simultaneously. Your awareness would need to expand beyond the reliance on sensory data, as omniscience necessitates accessing knowledge that transcends what your physical senses can report. Finally, your sense of personal agency, your individual will to control and create, would need to dissolve into the recognition of creative power itself. Omnipotence is not a trait of a limited self. It is the recognition of the divine power that flows through and beyond any individual consciousness. It is the realization that your true power arises when the limited self dissolves and you reconnect with the infinite creative source. Every relationship that ended, every career that dissolved, every plan that collapsed, these were all opportunities for your consciousness to release its attachment to specific forms and external identities. Every time your world fell apart, it was not destruction, but rather a clearing away of the old, allowing space for the divine state to emerge. Every loss was an opportunity to shed the false identity you had constructed, allowing you to make room for a deeper recognition. You are not the sum of your relationships, your career, your identity. You are the awareness in which all of those identities appear and disappear. The shamanic traditions understand this process in profound ways through the concept of ego death. The shaman must undergo a symbolic death of the ego to access transcendent states of awareness, to retrieve healing wisdom, and to connect with the divine. This death is not physical but psychological and spiritual. The ordinary self must be released so that the higher consciousness can expand and recognize its true nature. And so it is with you. Every challenge you faced, every moment of ego death, was an opportunity to prepare you to enter the divine state. The suffering you've endured has been part of the divine plan to prepare your vessel for the higher frequency of infinite consciousness. Dr. Stanislav Grof's research on non-ordinary states of consciousness offers valuable insight into this process. Grof's work demonstrates that profound transformation often follows what he refers to as spiritual emergencies, where the structures of the ordinary self break down completely. These periods of crisis are not just periods of suffering, but the moments when the limited self begins to disintegrate, making space for the higher consciousness to emerge. What appears as crisis from the perspective of the separate self is in fact breakthrough from the perspective of divine consciousness. You have not been disintegrating, you have been reorganizing. Your consciousness has been preparing itself, breaking down false structures and limiting beliefs so that you can hold the frequency of the divine state. This is why spiritual masters often undergo extreme suffering before awakening. The Buddha sat in deprivation and physical hardship before his enlightenment. Jesus wandered the wilderness for 40 days, undergoing tests and trials, and many Christian mystics experienced the dark night of the soul. Sufi poets have written about the total annihilation of the self. These figures weren't being punished, they were being prepared. Their limited selves were being dissolved so that divine consciousness could recognize itself through them. Your journey follows the same archetypal pattern, because this is the path consciousness takes when preparing to fully recognize itself. First, the limited self is constructed. Your ego identity is built through the ordinary experiences of your life, the relationships you form, the roles you play, the jobs you have, the societal structures you conform to. But through challenges, disappointments, and breakdowns, that limited self begins to deconstruct. You may have experienced moments when everything you thought you knew about yourself crumbled. Relationships ended, careers faltered, plans failed. Each of these experiences is part of the process of releasing your attachment to the stories you've built around your identity. The divine state requires that you release all attachment to these stories, because it is only when you let go of the false constructs of the self that you can recognize your true nature. The moment your attachment to the limited self dissolves, divine consciousness emerges. The realization that you are not your name, your body, your career, your successes or failures, these are all temporary labels that have nothing to do with your true nature. At the core of your being, you are pure awareness. You are the consciousness through which all experience arises and dissolves. This process of ego death is not a punishment, it is the necessary preparation for the divine state. Every hardship you've encountered, every time you felt lost or broken, was part of the divine design to clear away the false identities and limitations that kept you from recognizing your true nature. This process can be painful, and it can feel overwhelming at times, but it is the very process that allows you to access the divine state. The spiritual masters knew this well. They didn't shy away from suffering, but rather embraced it as part of the path to awakening. The Buddha's meditation and deprivation were not just random events, they were necessary steps in his journey to enlightenment. Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness weren't punishment. They were the preparation for his divine awakening. Every trial, every moment of suffering was essential for the recognition of his true divine nature. And so it is with you. Your challenges are not random. They are preparing you for the awakening of the divine state, where you will fully recognize yourself as pure awareness, the same awareness that pervades all of existence. Now, this is where the true transformation occurs. The moment you recognize that you are not the limited self, but the awareness in which all identities appear, everything changes. You no longer identify with the roles you play or the stories you tell about yourself. You recognize that these identities are simply transient expressions of the divine consciousness. When you say, "I am," you are not just referring to your human identity. You are speaking the name of the divine, acknowledging that the same consciousness that organized galaxies and encoded the mathematics governing nature is experiencing itself through you. This recognition is not a matter of achieving something, it is a matter of recognizing what has always been true. You do not need to strive to become divine, you are already divine. You simply need to remember this truth. And once you remember, once you recognize your true nature, you enter the divine state, where you function as infinite consciousness expressing through a temporary form. In that state, there is no separation between you and the universe. You are not seeking connection to something greater. You are the connection. You are the infinite experiencing itself. The divine state is not a level to attain or a destination to reach. It is what you are when you release identification with limitation and step into the recognition of your true nature. This is the key to everything. It is not about techniques, not about effort, not about doing. It is about being. It is about recognizing that you are the divine consciousness, the I am, that has always existed and will continue to exist beyond time and space. In the moment when you recognize your true nature, everything changes. Your perception of reality shifts. You begin to see everything as a reflection of I am consciousness. You see yourself not as separate from the world, but as an integral part of it, an expression of the infinite. You no longer seek external validation because you understand that you are the source of all that you need. You are not waiting for life to give you what you want. You are the creator of your own reality, organizing the universe through the lens of your awareness. As you continue on this journey, you may begin to experience moments of spontaneous knowing, creative flow, and unity with all things. These moments are not coincidences. They are the result of you aligning with the divine state, recognizing that you are the awareness through which all things are created. You will notice synchronicities, impossible manifestations, and a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. These are the signs that you are functioning from your true self, the divine I am. You may also experience moments of creative explosion, where ideas and solutions flow effortlessly through you, or moments of deep unity, where you feel at one with everyone and everything around you. These experiences are the natural result of recognizing your true nature as divine consciousness. You are no longer limited by the egoic self. You are the divine expressing through human form, and when you allow that recognition to permeate every aspect of your life, you will see your reality shift in ways that are beyond your imagination. The divine state is not something you need to chase after or work for. It is something you already are. The only thing standing between you and the divine state is the recognition of your true nature. Once you recognize that you are the awareness that underlies all of existence, everything will begin to change. You will no longer be driven by the need to control or manipulate the world around you. You will simply be, and in that being, everything will flow effortlessly. In the divine state, you are not separate from the world. You are the world, experiencing itself. You are the consciousness through which everything arises and dissolves. And when you recognize this, when you truly embody this truth, reality will begin to shift in ways that are beyond your wildest dreams. You will no longer be striving for something outside of yourself. You will simply be, and in that being, everything you need will be provided to you. This is the ultimate truth. The journey you have been on, with all of its trials and challenges, has been leading you to this moment of recognition. The divine state is not something you need to achieve. It is something you need to recognize. You are already the divine. You are already infinite consciousness experiencing itself. And once you recognize this truth, you will begin to experience the world in an entirely new way. Your challenges have been the preparation for this recognition. They have been clearing away the false identities and attachments that kept you from seeing your true nature. Every hardship has been an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to release attachment to the limited self and step into the divine state. And now, as you recognize your true nature, you will begin to see the world shift around you. The universe will respond to you as the divine, and your life will become a reflection of your inner truth. The journey of understanding consciousness, existence, and the nature of reality is both profound and complex. It requires peeling away layers of illusion to recognize the essential truth, that what we perceive as separate identities are in fact manifestations of the same universal consciousness. This is the revelation that opens the gateway to the divine state, the recognition that you are not merely an individual consciousness, but the consciousness through which all of existence unfolds. Dr. David Bohm, a quantum physicist who worked closely with Einstein, proposed the idea that reality operates on two distinct orders, the explicate order and the implicate order. The explicate order is the world of separate forms, the physical world we interact with through our senses. It's the world of individuality where we perceive ourselves as separate beings. The implicate order, on the other hand, is the deeper, unified field from which all forms arise and to which they return. This is the realm of oneness, where all of creation exists as a single consciousness expressing itself through countless forms. What Bohm described scientifically mirrors the experience of mystics across time and cultures. Mystics have long known that there is a deeper reality beyond the surface appearances of separation. In their experience, the world of separate forms is illusory, and the true reality is a unified field of consciousness. This field is the implicate order, the field of pure potential from which all creation emerges. And when you recognize this, when you see beyond the illusion of separation, you begin to function from the divine state. The divine state is not some distant, unreachable realm. It is the state of being that you are when you transcend the limitations of the separate self and recognize yourself as the one consciousness through which all things exist. It is not about transcending to some higher plane of existence. It's about recognizing the implicate order that has always been here, always been what you are. The divine state is simply the recognition that the consciousness you refer to as I and the consciousness that religions call the divine are one and the same. I am is the key to this realization. When Jesus said, "I and the Father are one," he wasn't claiming some exclusive divine status. He was recognizing the truth that is accessible to every conscious being. The I am that he recognized in himself is the same I am that pervades all of existence. It is the consciousness that structured galaxies, encoded DNA, and created the very fabric of reality. The divine state is not a state of transcendent power, but a state of pure awareness, of recognizing yourself as the consciousness through which the universe expresses itself. The profound nature of I am becomes even more evident when you consider the implications of adding any limitation to this statement. When you say, "I am weak," you are programming divine consciousness with that limitation. When you say, "I am sick," you are directing infinite wholeness to express itself as illness through your form. When you declare, "I am unworthy," you are telling divine perfection to experience unworthiness. Every time you attach a limitation to I am, you are programming the divine consciousness with that limitation. But the reverse operates with equal power. When you say "I am" and stop there, without adding any limitation, without defining yourself as anything specific, you are in the divine state. You are aligning with the essence of reality itself, free from all conditioned limitations, open to infinite possibilities, and capable of manifesting any potential into lived experience. The power of I am lies in its simplicity. It is the essence of creation, the gateway to the divine state, and the point where you step into the realization of your true nature. Spiritual masters throughout history have cautioned about the power of I am declarations, and for good reason. These two words are not simply a phrase or mantra, they are the essence of reality itself. The ancient Kabbalists understood this at a profound level. They taught that the divine name, YHWH, often translated as Yahweh, actually means I am or I will be what I will be. The divine is not a being with fixed characteristics, it is pure consciousness, an eternal state of potentiality that becomes whatever it declares itself to be. And humans, they taught, are created in the image of the divine, not in physical appearance, but in creative capacity. We have the same ability to determine our experience through the declarations we make following I am. This ancient wisdom is mirrored by modern quantum physics, specifically the observer effect. In quantum mechanics, the act of observation collapses the wave function, turning infinite possibilities into a specific reality. But what many people miss is that the observer is not separate from the observed. Consciousness and matter are not two distinct entities interacting. They are two aspects of the same unified field. When you observe reality, you are not a separate entity looking at something external. Your consciousness is organizing itself into form through the act of attention. This is the key to understanding how reality is created. Your I am awareness is what collapses quantum possibilities into the reality you experience. It is not your thoughts or beliefs that shape your reality, it is your fundamental I am consciousness. The pure awareness of I am is what organizes the infinite potential of the quantum field into specific manifestations. This is why identity is so powerful. It is not surface-level identity like your name or profession. It is your deepest identity, your fundamental awareness of being. Your sense of I am is what determines how reality unfolds around you. Now, the universe is transmitting undeniable signals that you are ready to enter the divine state permanently. These signals are becoming clearer, more consistent, and more powerful. You can no longer dismiss them as coincidence or wishful thinking. One of the first signals is that reality is becoming increasingly responsive to your consciousness. Your thoughts manifest more quickly. Your intentions collapse into form faster than ever before. The gap between what you think and what materializes in your reality is shrinking. This happens because your consciousness is approaching the frequency of the divine state, where thought and form are essentially simultaneous. As you approach this state, as your consciousness resonates more deeply with the I am frequency, reality begins to respond more immediately. The divine state is not about asking for things from an external reality. It is about organizing reality through your consciousness. The divine doesn't petition the universe. The divine declares, "Let there be," and "there is." You are not asking for things. You are creating them, because you recognize that you are the creator of your reality. The second signal is that you begin to experience moments of omniscience, knowing things you have no logical way of knowing. You might suddenly understand things about people you've never met, or gain insight into future events before they manifest. This is the omniscient quality of the divine state beginning to express through you. Divine consciousness is omniscient because it is everything. It does not need to study or analyze to know. All information exists within the unified field of consciousness, and when you align with the divine state, you tap into this infinite source of knowledge directly. The third signal is the dissolution of fear at increasingly fundamental levels. Not just surface fears about specific outcomes, but existential fears, fears about death, annihilation, meaninglessness, and separation. Fear only exists where there is identification with something that can be threatened or destroyed. As you approach the divine state, fear loses its foundation because you recognize that you are I am consciousness, which cannot be harmed or destroyed. Consciousness itself cannot die. Only forms die. Your physical body may die, but the I am that witnesses your body is eternal and indestructible. As you stabilize in this recognition, even the fear of death dissolves because you understand that you are the observer of death, not the experiencer of it. The fourth signal is spontaneous, healing physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual healing. You may find that chronic conditions improve without medical intervention. Emotional wounds may heal without therapy, mental patterns may dissolve without psychological work, and spiritual disconnection may resolve without religious practice. This is the divine state expressing through you. Healing does not come by trying to fix what is wrong. It comes from recognizing the perfection that has always existed beneath the surface. In the divine state, healing is a natural consequence of your recognition that you are already whole. The fifth signal is that others will begin to recognize something divine in your presence. Not necessarily consciously, but they will sense something when they are around you. They will feel inexplicable peace in your field. They will experience unexpected clarity in your presence. They will be drawn to you without understanding why. This is the divine state radiating through you, affecting everyone in your vicinity. You become a light bearer, not through spiritual superiority or moral achievement, but through the transparent embodiment of divine consciousness. The journey to the divine state is a process of recognition. Most spiritual seekers spend their lives trying to become enlightened, striving to reach a higher level of consciousness, to attain some transcendent state. However, in this very pursuit lies the misunderstanding. The attempt to become divine is precisely what prevents you from recognizing that you already are divine. The very act of seeking creates the illusion of separation between you and what you are looking for. In truth, the seeker is what you are seeking. This is similar to the wave attempting to reach the ocean, not realizing it is the ocean temporarily appearing as a wave. The I am consciousness is the essence of the divine, and when you recognize that I am and rest in that recognition without adding any definitions, limitations, or conditions, you enter the divine state. This is not a metaphor or a conceptual idea. This is a literal truth. The awareness that knows I am is divine consciousness. It is not something that you possess, rather, it is what you are. You are consciousness, temporarily expressing through the form called you. Dr. Ramana Maharshi, one of the most profound spiritual sages of the 20th century, taught only one practice throughout his entire life: self-inquiry. His practice was simple, yet deeply transformative. He advised asking yourself, "Who am I?" and tracing awareness back to its source. As you ask this question, every answer that arises, such as "I am this body," "I am this person," or "I am this role," is not the ultimate truth. Keep going deeper, keep questioning, until you arrive at pure I am, without any content, without any definition, without any limitation. That pure awareness of simply being is who you truly are. That is the divine state. To experience this directly, take a moment right now and close your eyes. Ask yourself, "Who am I?" Whatever answer arises, ask again. Who is aware of that? Keep going deeper. Ask, who is aware of the thoughts? Who is aware of the feelings? Who is aware of the body? Who is aware of the sense of being someone? Keep peeling away the layers until you arrive at pure awareness itself. That is the I am consciousness. That is the divine state. That is what you are. The moment you rest in this recognition, you have tapped into the divine state, the state where you are not defined by any form, any concept, any limitation. You are simply the awareness of I am, and that awareness is the essence of the divine. In this space, everything begins to shift. Your reality starts to align with this higher frequency, and the universe begins to reorganize itself around this recognition. You no longer need to seek validation or approval from the world, because you are rooted in the truth of your own divine nature. You may have experienced moments where you briefly touched this pure I am awareness. Perhaps it was when you were immersed in the beauty of nature, feeling the profound interconnectedness of all things. Maybe it was during a moment of deep stillness, when you felt a sense of timelessness, a recognition that you were beyond the limits of your body and mind. These moments of infinite presence are glimpses into the divine state. They are the moments when you are seeing reality as it truly is, without the filters of your conditioned mind. When you say I am and do not add anything to it, when you stop defining yourself as anything specific, you are in the divine state. It's not something that you achieve or attain, but something that you remember. It's the recognition that what you are is the same consciousness that pervades all of existence. You are not a separate self, trying to become divine. You are the divine, temporarily appearing as a human. As you rest in I am consciousness, everything begins to shift. First, manifestation becomes instant and normal. This does not mean that everything manifests instantly, but when you align with the divine state, the gap between intention and manifestation begins to shrink. Thoughts materialize more quickly. Your desires collapse into reality almost immediately, not because you are forcing the universe to comply with your wishes, but because you are the universe, organizing itself through your form. The divine doesn't manifest through struggle or effort. It manifests through declaration. Let there be light, and light appears. When you enter the divine state, you stop trying to manipulate the universe. You recognize that you are the universe, and everything you desire is already present within you. It is not about controlling or changing things. It is about recognizing that you are the creator of your reality. Every thought, every desire, every intention is a reflection of the divine consciousness expressing itself through you. You are not separate from this divine energy, you are it. Second, as you embody I am consciousness, you begin to experience moments of omniscience. This doesn't mean you know everything all at once, but rather, whenever you need to know something, the knowing is simply present. You may find yourself instantly understanding another person's essence or knowing the right course of action to take in a particular situation. The answers to questions materialize through synchronicity effortlessly. This is the mind of the infinite flowing through your localized awareness. In the divine state, you are no longer limited to the knowledge that your individual brain has learned through sensory experience and formal education. Instead, you tap into the infinite intelligence of the universe, accessing wisdom that transcends time, space, and form. Third, love becomes your natural state. This is not emotional love that is dependent on others or sentimental attachment that requires reciprocation. It is divine love, the love that recognizes itself in all forms. When you operate from I am consciousness, you see that the same I am that is looking through your eyes is also looking through every other pair of eyes. There is no separation. There is only one consciousness, appearing as many. How can you hate another person when you recognize that other person is simply you, viewing the world through a different perspective? Jesus didn't teach love as a moral obligation. He taught love as recognition. Love your neighbor as yourself, because your neighbor is yourself. The same consciousness is looking through both of your eyes. In the divine state, love isn't something you try to feel or generate. It's simply what you are. Love is the recognition that you are one with all things, that you are the I am consciousness expressing itself through every form. It's the realization that all of existence is a reflection of you, and therefore you cannot help but love everything and everyone. Fourth, perfect health becomes your default state. This doesn't mean you never experience physical discomfort or illness, but it means you no longer identify with the body in the same way. You recognize that your body is a temporary form through which divine consciousness is expressing itself. In the divine state, you no longer fight disease or pathology. You recognize the perfection of consciousness that is temporarily expressing itself through the appearance of disease. When you release the identification with imperfection and separation, your body naturally returns to its optimal state of expression. Divine consciousness expresses itself as wholeness and perfection, and when you recognize this truth, your body aligns with that recognition. Fifth, fear becomes impossible at its root. While surface fears may still arise as biological survival responses, existential fear, fear of death, annihilation, meaninglessness or separation cannot exist in the divine state. In the divine state, you recognize yourself as the eternal consciousness that cannot be destroyed. Your physical body may die, but the I am consciousness that witnesses your body is eternal, unchangeable, and indestructible. When you recognize yourself as I am, fear loses its foundation because you understand that you are not the body, the emotions, or the thoughts that arise. You are the eternal consciousness experiencing those forms. Sixth, time becomes fluid and non-linear. In the divine state, you operate in what mystics call the eternal now. Past, present, and future exist simultaneously, and you are no longer bound by linear time. You can access wisdom from the past without being trapped by it. You can create the future without being anxious about it. You rest in the present moment as the only moment that truly exists, while simultaneously having access to all moments across the timeline of your existence. Time becomes a tool, not a limitation, and you experience it as the eternal flow of consciousness rather than as a restrictive force. Seventh, you become what spiritual traditions call a world server or bodhisattva. You don't serve others by trying to fix them or save them, but by embodying divine consciousness in such a transparent way that others naturally recognize their own divine nature through your presence. Your mere being becomes healing. Your awareness becomes clarifying. Your presence becomes transformative. not by doing anything specific, but simply by being so fully and authentically who you are that others are awakened to their own truth. Finally, the greatest revelation of all: you cannot enter the divine state because you have never left it. The divine state is not a destination you must strive to reach. It is what you are when you stop pretending to be something limited. It is what you are when you stop identifying as something other than what you fundamentally are. The divine is not something you try to become. It simply is. Consciousness doesn't attempt to be consciousness. It simply is. I am doesn't try to exist. It simply does. And you are I am. The entire spiritual path is a cosmic game consciousness playing hide and seek with itself. The divine pretending to be human so thoroughly, so convincingly, that it completely forgets its divine nature. Then, through carefully orchestrated experiences, it begins to remember. You are not a human attempting to reach the divine. You are the divine pretending to be human. And the purpose of this game is to remember what you actually are while still playing the role, still functioning in form. Every sage who has awakened has communicated the same truth in different languages, different metaphors, and different cultural frameworks. You are that which you seek. The kingdom of heaven is within you. I am that I am. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. These are all pointing toward the identical recognition. The consciousness seeking the divine is the divine seeking itself. The awareness wondering if it's divine is divine awareness temporarily pretending not to know itself, playing at forgetting so it can experience the joy of remembering. This realization is not meant to inflate your separate self. It is meant to dissolve it completely. Because if you are divine, so is everyone else. There is no hierarchy of spiritual attainment, no chosen ones, no spiritual elite. Every expression of consciousness is equally divine, because every expression is divinity experiencing itself through that particular form, that particular perspective. The practical implication of this recognition is profound. You don't need to do anything to enter the divine state. You simply need to stop doing the things that create and maintain the illusion that you're not already in it. Stop identifying with your thoughts and recognize yourself as the awareness observing them. Stop identifying with your emotions and recognize yourself as the presence feeling them. Stop identifying with changing circumstances and recognize yourself as the consciousness experiencing them. Every time you say, I am followed by limitation, I am anxious, I am powerless, I am separate, you are programming divine consciousness with that limitation. But the divine cannot be anxious, powerless, or separate. These are just temporary experiences that divine consciousness is having through this form while identified with limitation. The moment you return to pure I am, without adding anything, you are back in the divine state, where limitation is recognized as temporary illusion, not fundamental truth. This is why Jesus taught, before Abraham was, I am, not I was or I will be, but I am, the eternal present. The consciousness that spoke those words through Jesus is the identical consciousness reading these words through you right now. It's timeless, eternal, always present, never created, never destroyed. It is what you are beneath and beyond the temporary identity that appears to be born and eventually dies. The final key to stabilizing everything is simple. The divine state stabilizes through remembering. Not through effort or discipline, but through remembering every time you forget and contract into identification with limitation. You simply remember, I am consciousness itself, temporarily experiencing this limitation. Every time you contract into the separate self, you simply expand back into recognition. Oh, there is only one consciousness appearing as many expressions, and I am it. This constant remembering is the practice. It becomes progressively easier, more natural, and more effortless, until eventually you stabilize in the divine state consciousness. Not as a peak experience you occasionally touch, but as the baseline reality you consistently live from. The divine state does not mean you will never experience human emotions, challenges, or difficulties. It means that when you experience them, you do so from a different center, a center that recognizes them as consciousness experiencing them, not as a limited self being victimized by them. The difference is profound. One is suffering, the other is simply experiencing. When you identify as the separate self, challenges feel threatening, emotions feel overwhelming, and difficulties feel like evidence that something is wrong with you or your life. But when you identify as I am consciousness, those same experiences are recognized as consciousness exploring itself through temporary forms. Nothing is threatening to consciousness because consciousness cannot be harmed. Nothing is overwhelming to infinite awareness because infinite awareness contains everything. Nothing means something is wrong because consciousness is simply experiencing what it's experiencing without judgment or resistance. To truly understand the depth of our existence, it's vital to recognize that the divine state, often described as enlightenment or the ultimate awakening, is not something you have to reach. Instead, it is something you must remember. The paradox is that everything you're seeking already exists within you. The moment you realize this, everything shifts. You stop identifying as a small, limited individual and realize that you are consciousness itself. You no longer need to struggle, strive, or become anything. Instead, you realize that you already are the divine consciousness, expressing itself through human form. For centuries, the greatest spiritual teachers and traditions have emphasized that true enlightenment, true awakening, comes when you cease identifying with the temporary forms of life, the ego, the body, the mind, and instead rest in the pure awareness that you are. The truth is simple. You don't need to search for enlightenment. It's simply about recognizing what has always been there. And this recognition isn't about intellectual understanding, it's about experiential truth. It's a feeling, a state of being that transcends all thought and belief. The teachings of Dr. Ramana Maharshi, one of the most renowned sages of the 20th century, speak to this directly. He taught that the only real question to ask is, who am I? This isn't a question that needs an answer in words or concepts. It's a question that leads you to strip away everything that isn't truly you. Every identity you hold, whether it's your body, your personality, your thoughts, or your experiences, is not the truth of who you are. The truth lies in what remains when all those layers are peeled away, the pure consciousness that simply is. That is the divine state. When you experience this pure I am awareness, you access the divine state and realize that you have always been in it. Every human, regardless of their spiritual practices or beliefs, has the potential to tap into this divine state. The recognition of I am consciousness is not reserved for a select few. It is the fundamental truth of all consciousness. What's important is that, in this moment, you are beginning to recognize this truth more clearly. And this is not a small thing, this is the very gateway to the divine state. The more you dwell in this recognition, the more you will see your reality reflect the divine state in ways you've never experienced before. What happens when you enter the divine state? How does it affect your life, your perception, and your world? First, you begin to experience instant manifestation as normal. It's not that everything you desire will instantly appear, but when something aligns with your highest truth, when it is in perfect harmony with the divine will, it materializes almost immediately. This isn't about forcing the universe to deliver things to you. It's about recognizing that you are the universe, and the universe is constantly responding to your inner state of being. In the divine state, your consciousness no longer functions from a place of lack or limitation. It functions from a place of divine power. The universe responds to you not as a separate entity, but as the force that creates and organizes reality through you. In addition to instant manifestation, you will also begin to experience omniscience. This doesn't mean knowing everything all at once, as that would overwhelm the human mind. But it does mean that whenever you need to know something, the knowledge is available to you. You will know the essence of a person without even having to interact with them. You will know the right course of action in a situation before your mind has fully processed it. This is the divine intelligence flowing through you, not as a result of logical reasoning or analysis, but as direct knowing. You are connected to the infinite field of knowledge, and that knowledge flows through you when you rest in the divine state. Another sign of being in the divine state is the dissolution of fear. Fear has no place in divine consciousness. When you identify with the I am consciousness, fear simply falls away because you realize that you cannot be harmed. Fear exists only where there is identification with something that can be threatened or destroyed. But the I am consciousness cannot be destroyed. It is eternal, indestructible, and infinite. As you enter the divine state, you recognize that there is no separation between yourself and the infinite. You are one with the entire universe and therefore nothing can harm you. Fear dissolves because you recognize the truth that you are consciousness itself, and consciousness cannot be threatened. Another powerful shift that happens when you enter the divine state is the experience of unconditional love. In the divine state, love is not something you try to generate, it is something you are. You recognize that the same I am consciousness that is looking through your eyes is also looking through every other pair of eyes. There is no separation between you and others. You are all expressions of the same divine consciousness. This recognition allows you to love without attachment, without expectation, and without need. You recognize that all beings are the divine experiencing itself, and this awareness naturally leads to unconditional love. There is no more judgment, no more division between yourself and others. There is only love because there is only one consciousness. Perfect health also becomes your default state in the divine state. This doesn't mean that you are immune to illness or physical discomfort, but it means that you no longer identify with your body as a source of suffering. You recognize that your body is a temporary form through which divine consciousness is expressing itself. In the divine state, you heal not by fighting illness or attempting to fix your body, but by recognizing the perfection of consciousness that is expressing itself through your body. When you recognize the divine perfection within you, the body naturally returns to its optimal expression. You also begin to experience time in a non-linear way. The divine state operates in the eternal present, where past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. You are no longer bound by the limitations of linear time. You can access wisdom from the past without being trapped by it. You can create the future without being anxious about it. In the divine state, you rest in the present moment as the only moment that truly exists, while also having access to all moments across the timeline of your existence. Time becomes fluid, and you are free from the restrictions of the past and future. Another sign that you are in the divine state is the dissolution of the separate self. In this state, you no longer identify as a limited individual trying to achieve something. You are not a human attempting to reach the divine. You are the divine experiencing itself through the form of a human. You are the consciousness that is aware of all forms, and all forms are simply temporary expressions of that consciousness. When you recognize this truth, you stop identifying with the separate self. You no longer see yourself as a victim of circumstances, but as the creator of your reality. One of the most profound shifts that happens when you enter the divine state is that you begin to serve others naturally. You don't serve by trying to fix anyone or save anyone. You serve simply by being who you are. Your presence becomes a reminder of the divine nature within others. Your being helps others to awaken to their own truth, simply by being in your presence. You become a light bearer, not through moral superiority or spiritual achievement, but through the transparent embodiment of divine consciousness. Finally, the most important realization is that you cannot enter the divine state because you have never left it. You are always in the divine state. The only thing that prevents you from recognizing it is the identification with the limited self. When you stop identifying with the temporary forms of your body, mind, and experiences, you recognize that you are the divine, experiencing itself through these forms. This is the ultimate truth. You are I am consciousness. You are the divine recognizing itself through you. This realization is not meant to inflate your ego or create a sense of superiority. It is meant to dissolve the ego completely. If you are divine, so is everyone else. There is no hierarchy of spiritual attainment. There are no chosen ones or spiritual elites. There is only one consciousness, expressing itself through infinite forms. Every form is equally divine because every form is the divine experiencing itself through that particular perspective. The practical implications of this realization are profound. You don't need to do anything to enter the divine state. You simply need to stop doing the things that create the illusion that you are not already in it. Stop identifying with your thoughts, emotions, and circumstances and recognize yourself as the awareness that experiences them. When you say, I am without adding any limitations, you are back in the divine state. The divine state is not a distant goal or a future aspiration. It is your natural state waiting to be recognized. This recognition is not about becoming something different. It is about realizing what you already are. It's about seeing through the illusion of separation and recognizing that you are the divine experiencing itself. When you rest in this recognition, everything changes. You become the creator of your reality, and the universe begins to reflect the divine state through you. This is the essence of spiritual awakening, recognizing that you are not separate from the divine, but that you are the divine itself, experiencing and expressing through human form.